Welcome to the Life-Given Editors Cast. We have these once a blue moon when something exciting is happening or I have some updates for you about the radio sites. Today is an exciting announcement because we have a new podcast join the team. And Ryan Ayers is going to be the new host of that podcast. And first off, just to get things started, Ryan is with me right now. My first question for you is, who is Ryan Ayers and why a podcast? Why this project that you want to work on?
Yeah, well, Ryan Ayers is me. Surprise.
Surprise.
Let's see. I'm 22 years old. I live in Mossville, Idaho, among the rolling wheat fields. I graduated New St. Andrews with a bachelor's in liberal arts and culture 7 days ago.
Congratulations. Fresh out of it. Yeah. We're both fresh out of it.
Both fresh out of it. Yeah, I live in Moscow with my lovely wife, and I currently work in custom cabinetry. With my free time, I will start doing podcasts
Nice.
and blogging. Yeah, I love reading, love analyzing, so I wanted to get into more of that.
Okay. Sweet. And so what exactly will the project look like? Because you kind of mentioned you're going to be, you love reading and writing, but podcasts you don't necessarily do that much writing that everyone sees, right? Although in some shows, like I know for my show, I do a lot of writing. But what exactly will this project look like, and what's it going to be called?
Yeah, so it's called Sanctifying Story, and why that is, we can get into later.
Right.
But as far as like the structure of the project, basically there's going to be two different sources. There's a blog and a podcast.
Okay.
And the blog and podcast are going to be identical.
Okay, sweet.
Identical content, but obviously different format. So the podcast is going to be basically the spoken word
Right.
of the blog.
Yeah,
The blog is just going to be the podcast, but written down.
Okay, cool.
So that's the basic structure there. So you can, I guess there's two different means by which you can check out Sanctifying Story. There are, as far as episodes, there's going to be, in theory, there should be 2 episodes per month.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the first one should be doing fiction. The second one should be doing nonfiction. Analyzing those. And basically, the approach to both of them is actually going to be the same. Each episode, I'm basically going to give an argument for what I think the book is about.
Okay.
Whether it's fiction or nonfiction.
Right.
And then why you should care or why it matters. With fiction, what it's about, that it's going to be a little bit longer.
Right.
And why you should care is going to be a little bit shorter.
Okay.
Because what the book is about is going to be a little less self-evident.
Right.
With nonfiction, it's going to be the reverse. So,
right.
What it's about is going to be a little bit shorter.
Okay.
And why you should care should hopefully be longer.
Yeah.
So
that's great. So
strategy.
So is there who's the target audience for this podcast and blog?
Yeah, basically for people who want to become more literate.
Okay.
Or to keep up in their literacy or copiousness.
Right.
So basically, it can function as in 2 ways. It can function basically as a great books list. So,
nice.
Or it can function as giving you the tools to analyze great books.
Right.
So that can then appeal to a couple of different kinds of audience.
Okay.
Audience who want to read great books but aren't really sure what to read.
Right.
Then there's a list, so you can just look through it and see what's interesting to you.
Okay.
Or you can hear a little bit about it, get a little sense of what it's about, and then check it out yourself. I think it can also appeal to an audience who wants to read good books but doesn't really know how to interact with the book.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't really know what tools to use.
Right.
Or maybe knows what books should be great, like Narnia or the Iliad or something like that, but aren't really sure why it's great.
Right. Right.
Hopefully this would give then an example and the tools to analyze the books that I'm analyzing, see how I do it,
okay,
and then take it yourself to other books. So the goal is to increase literacy, to increase a love, or inculcate a love of learning, specifically through literature.
Okay.
And that can be learning new tools that you haven't had before.
Right.
Or it can be developing the tools that you already have.
Right.
And this is also for me as much as it is for the audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I guess the tools that I'm going to be using are tools that I've learned from New St. Andrews College.
Okay. That was going to be my next question.
Right.
Like, where did you learn this this art form?
Yeah.
Honestly. So.
Sure. Yeah. I'd say there's a certain level of copiousness or literary analysis that I was given, and I don't want to lose that.
Right.
I want to tend it and take care of it, and
absolutely
increase it if possible. And then I also want to give that
right
to what I have, as much as it is, to other people. So that's the audience.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic, and this is going to be kind of a question that you already covered the answer to, but I think it'd be good to be able to boil down your answer. But if you had to pitch Sanctifying story to a friend in a sentence or two, how would you describe it? How would you try to catch their interest with it?
Yeah, in a single sentence, basically, Sanctifying Story is a podcast or blog that analyzes underrated great literature according to who Christ is and the reality he created.
Okay.
And what I mean by underrated great literature is books that wouldn't appear, you wouldn't find them in college classes.
Right.
So if you went to college, you'll find the Iliad, the Odyssey, Brothers K, Shakespeare.
Right, for good reason.
For good reason.
Yeah.
Those are the big cheeses.
Yeah.
The grand poobahs.
The main cheese.
The main cheese. And I'm in no way demeaning those.
Right.
Those are all amazing. But they're already covered.
Yes, yeah.
And there's actually a lot of other books.
Right.
Besides those big cheeses.
Right.
That I think are worth analyzing, worth studying.
Okay.
Worth reading. So that's one, I guess, group of books that I want to cover, kind of the main group.
Okay.
The other group I want to cover is literally underrated classics.
Okay.
Moby Dick is a great example.
Right.
Everyone knows that it's a classic, but everyone hates it.
Right.
So
right.
It's like, whoa, what's going on there?
Right.
So potentially trying to defend the classics.
Okay.
That people are like, it's a classic, but why?
Right.
Nobody likes this book.
Right.
And then the third group, which is probably the smallest, would be classics that everyone agrees is a classic, but no one is sure why.
Right. Right.
I think Narnia would be a good example.
Okay.
Like everyone knows if you're a Christian, you're supposed to like Narnia.
Right.
But why?
Right. Absolutely.
I don't know if a lot of people, I could be wrong, but I don't know if a lot of people would have a super great answer, because I myself don't have a great answer at the moment.
Right.
And usually, this is kind of getting into the weeds, but usually I would imagine the answer would go something like, well, it has Christian allegory.
Right.
But there's good allegory and there's bad allegory. So it's like, well, which is it?
Right.
And Tolkien actually was horrified at Narnia. So there are different opinions.
Okay.
And he is still a Christian.
Right. From very well respected individuals within our community.
Right.
So yeah, okay. That's a really good. I think a good analysis, and kind of helps people understand what the goal is, for the podcast and for the blog, honestly. So, and you already just described it, but just to get back to kind of narrowing it down, for the average listener, what do you want your average takeaway to be from each episode? Is it to have a greater appreciation for each book, or is it to be able to learn how to read every book?
I mean, I think it is both.
Okay.
I mean, basically, what I would love is for people to further love reading.
Okay.
Basically, to
Right.
further appreciate books. So that would entail the specific book that I'm doing, but that would also entail, I guess, just reading in general.
Right.
So I mean, I think it would be difficult to learn to appreciate a particular book and then not want to take that
Right.
to like all the books that you read.
Right.
So that's, if you want to think about it this way, I would be using the particular books, like Moby Dick, for example, or something, using that book to create, instill, or further continue a love or appreciation of literature that, Lord willing, hopefully, the reader would then take to other books.
Right.
Because the primary goal is for the listener, for the reader to increase their love of literature.
Okay. Fantastic.
Or appreciation.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I'm already just listening to this podcast. I'm very excited about that. The also, just for the listener, we are in the back of one of our favorite coffee shops in town, and there was a very obnoxious buzzing happening in the background. But that's what you get when you record offsite, and you're just in the natural wilderness.
That was not my phone.
No, that was not. Before we go, I do want to ask more about your blog.
Sure.
We've got a couple minutes here. What will your blog follow a similar schedule as your podcast? Will there be more posts? Are you going to be posting a couple times a month? What should people expect with your new blog?
People should expect exactly the same thing as the podcast.
Okay, cool.
I could see it branching out
right
into other things. I think ideally, I would like the blog to have more information, which it already does because it has like an about page, but podcast is just the episodes.
Right.
The blog is going to have a tiny bit more.
Okay.
I would like to increase that over time, but for now, it's going to be exactly the same.
Okay, cool.
So fiction and nonfiction episode dropping every month.
Okay, sweet.
And they should be around 15 to 20 minutes is what I'm shooting for each episode.
Fantastic. Sweet. So plenty to read and to listen to.
Yes. I think that would be like 2,000 to 3,000 words.
Wow. Yeah. So. That would definitely be a handful to write each time. So very excited to see that. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we get to our last question, or just kind of open up the floor? Do we miss anything?
Well, I said the Sanctifying story, what it's about is analyzing underrated great books according to who Christ is and the reality he created.
Right.
And I touched on underrated great books, but I didn't touch on the last bit, according to who Christ is and the reality he created. That sentence, like, why is that there?
Okay.
And basically, I said analyzing great books or good books, but what makes a book great? So I need a standard. I need a value system.
Right.
In order to analyze the books. And I'm not just doing fiction, I'm also doing nonfiction. So it's like all of literature. So I need a pretty big standard.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we don't have time to, I guess, get into my theory of how books work and like why books matter.
Right.
But I think it is tied to, I guess, each book, whether it's fiction, a fictional story, or it is talking about real story, like reality, is giving a worldview.
Right.
And it should give the worldview that Christ has, because Christ created the world.
Amen. Right.
And so, who Christ is truth. He is the source of all knowledge. He is the standard that we must have for everything, including literature.
Right.
And then the reality that he created, which we currently populate, is the reality that all of these books are talking about, whether they realize that or not. And so that's important to That's an important standard, theological framework, and I think interpretive standard that I'm going to be using.
Okay, that was great to know.
For the books that I'm analyzing. And I think it's also in keeping with Corinthians where Paul says, taking every thought captive in bondage to Christ, because it all belongs to Christ.
Right, amen.
So
yeah.
Just thought I should explain.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And for further explanation, they should definitely tune in to episode 1.
Yes.
Which is where can they find the podcast, and when is it launching? When's the launch date?
Yeah, they can find the podcast on the Life-Given Radio, and it should be dropping May 31st.
All right, fantastic. So that's going to be next Monday, not this coming Monday, but the Monday after next.
Yes.
So that's approaching really fast, and we're excited to have Ryan on the program. Well, not the program, but the radio channel, the thing, and also your blog will be going live that day as well.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Cool. So we'll keep an eye out for that. It'll be shared to everything TLG blog and podcast. So keep your eyes open for that. In the meantime, remember that the life that has been given and the life that you have received includes every area of life. Literature is no exception. God bless.